Hello. How are you?
Oh my God. I'm good. Oh, I'm in the middle of a snowstorm in Asheville right now.
Yes.
It's incredible.
I'm a little jealous, but also it's like 70 degrees here, so not.
So how sad can you be?
It was a friend of mine posted on Instagram. She was like, my guilty pleasure is rubbing California weather and East Coasters' faces during the winter. And it was a picture of her like roller skating by the beach in like a bikini. And I was like,
oh my God. It's hilarious. Yeah, like what's it like to not have seasonal depression and not be vitamin D deficient?
Look, here's the thing. That's why I moved here. I used to get so rocked in the winter. Like in February, specifically February, I would actually cry. Every winter, I would have like a breaking point where I would just cry for like 2 days. I would always say the same things. I would be like, I feel like I don't remember what it's like to be warm. Because I just felt like I never like fully warmed up.
Always chilled.
Like always just slightly chilled. And maybe I would get like a little bit of relief in the shower, but then you'd get out and you'd be wet. And then I would just be like, yeah, I don't know. So it's like, it's a thing for me for sure. Anyway.
I have one of those light therapy lights that you're supposed to stare into when you first wake up. I haven't had to break that out yet this year. I've been doing pretty good, surprisingly. So,
well, it's fun at first. I miss snow.
Yeah.
I love snow. I love a big snowstorm. I love playing in the snow. I love hot chocolate after snow.
Hot chocolate with marshmallows. It's so funny living in Asheville, having grown up in Buffalo, New York.
I literally got like a full body chill, like a legit like
shiver
shudder.
just hearing Buffalo. Yeah, which was just like feet of snow all the time, but you just kept doing life, you know, just part of it. I remember, going to college and just having to account that I was going to be soaking wet. Like I was just going to be covered in snow and soaking wet. And that's just like how it was. And I mean, and this was like when bell bottoms were like super in, and it just sucked because it was just like the bottom foot of my just slopping wet, like and flapping as I walked. You remember that?
Yeah. It's funny because like me skipping winter happened unintentionally at first. I moved to Louisiana and had 3 years without winter there. Because it's like, I don't know, New Year's Eve, you're still in like shorts sometimes. But you have an insane summer that's like 100 degrees and like living in a mouth. But after those 3 years of not having winter, I was like, oh, I can't go back.
Can't go back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it wasn't as like intentional. It was like a realization. Like, I can't do that anymore.
I mean, I get it.
I miss seasons, honestly, though.
Moving to Asheville for me was like, wow, I'm going from like it could snow for 6 months out of the year to like it snows twice a year.
Yeah.
And I remember the first year I was here, everyone was freaking out about this snow that was coming. And I'm like, why? I remember feeling very judgmental of these people. I'm like, they obviously like don't know shit about snow. And here I am. I'm like this Buffalonian that knows how to drive in the snow, whatever.
A Buffalonian?
Buffalonian. That's right.
I love the words for things. It makes me think of the Louis C.K. thing where he's like, people from Phoenix are called Phoenicians. Do you know that one?
Yes.
Buffalonians.
Buffalonians. But then I tried driving and it was horrifying.
Yeah, because Asheville doesn't know how to deal with snow. So it's like mountain men coming out with their big trucks. And they're like, but it's time to shine.
Right. It's also these mountain roads, these windy, there's no straight roads. They're all windy in the mountains. You're on an incline one way or another. It doesn't matter.
But it's also like the county isn't clearing those roads. I mean, maybe some of the big highways.
One plow.
Yeah. It's like the locals. I remember living in Brevard, like the locals, and they loved it. Like I kind of loved, I found it really endearing. Yeah, they're like, yes, I get to take out my huge truck and put on my plow on the front and go like save people, and they love it. And I love them for loving it. It's so cute.
Just this morning, I was on the local West Asheville Facebook page, and there's dudes on there like Wax.
Yeah. Oh, the best.
Man, like,
this Facebook page. Okay, sorry.
It has gotten like you have to have some balls to like post a comment on there.
Oh, you get roasted.
It's all it is. It's just getting like the ever living daylights roasted out of you. Like, I
love it. That's why I love it.
Yeah.
It's like my love language. I'm like, look at all these people roasting each other.
And every day somebody comments like, I've had it with this page. I'm leaving.
And everyone's like, peace.
Every day.
This page is toxic. It kind of is a little bit. It's a little like
totally. It's
but you
not
just
the
have
best
to, like,
expression of
the Wax West Asheville Exchange Facebook group. It's been reported on. There have been like news articles about the group.
For real?
Yeah, because they've collectively like solved crimes. I don't know.
This is true.
Yeah, like somebody will like rob a like restaurant, and then people will like post security footage, and somebody will be like, "Oh, I used to be their landlord." Like, and then it's like, it's pretty special.
And they've like taken down businesses.
Yes,
they've done lots of it's
I forget who covered it, but there was a newspaper article about this Facebook group because of just how ridiculous it is on so many levels. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but I was on there and there's like the guys with their trucks being like, I'm picking people up, just like throw some cash my way and I'll come get you. And I'm just like, oh.
See, I love that because like in college, when we would get snowstorms like that, we would just all like pile into one person's house and stay there for like 3 or 4 days and just
you
like
pick where you're going to get snowed in.
Yeah. And get food and then like maybe go on a snow walk to somebody else's house that's nearby and go sledding and like life is just canceled and see, I miss that.
It is kind of magical.
Miss that.
Yeah.
And like streets are shut down, so you're like can sled in the middle of a street. Like there's like hills in Asheville that become just sledding hills, and
definitely.
Oh,
it's fun.
I
like it. So I'm in the middle of a full shutdown. Everyone's just.
I miss that. I really do. I do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Ben didn't see snow until he was 14 or something. I might be getting that wrong, but he like remembers
older.
It.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, we gotta like take our kids to snow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I could do a whole podcast on just telling stories of being in snow.
Yeah, I bet you could. Yeah. Like real crazy ones.
Crazy stories of being in snow.
That's a weird thing, and I'll stop talking about seasons, but it's a weird thing about living in LA because it is kind of always the same. It gets like slightly colder in the winter. That's like it. Is that you lose your seasons, and I didn't realize how much I rely on seasons to tell the passing of time. So like you're talking to someone and they're like, oh, when did that happen? And you just think back and you're like, last winter or 2 winters ago. But not having that, I actually like don't know when things have happened. I'm like, I'm not sure how long I've lived here. I'm not sure what time of year I moved here. I'm not sure. So that's the thing about living in LA. I don't know how long I've lived here. I don't know when something happened. It's super bizarre to not have seasons really to tell time.
Disorienting.
It's super. I find it really disorienting. Like I'm like, I just kind of gave up after year 2. I was like, oh,
just surrendered.
I missed the first summer because I like to go home to the beach cottage where my granddad and I like spend time or used to spend time every summer. And the first summer I was here because it always felt like summer. All of a sudden it was October, and I was like, oh shit, I missed the summer.
Wow. I
just like wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. Weird.
I know. It is weird. I feel like though I would be okay with that kind of weird.
I am. You get over it.
Take that kind of weird. I know. I'd be like, how mad can I be at this beautiful 70-degree weather?
Yeah. You have a quote you want to share, don't you?
I do. I've been thinking, and just guess who it's from.
Esther Perel?
Esther Perel. We just like,
love her.
I love her so much. And I think, I don't know, because we talk about her almost every podcast, but I think she's just been such an influence in both of our lives and in our growth, especially how we view relationships specifically. She's just brilliant. But there's this quote that I have had stuck in my head for like months. And I'm kind of paraphrasing here, I think, but it's this idea that behind every criticism is a longing or an unfulfilled wish. And behind every anger is a hurt. And I feel like I really, really identify, especially like the criticism part, because I feel like that is more maybe like where I would land. But I feel like it's so true. It's like there's this longing or a hope or a wish or a need that's going unmet. Maybe there's a time that passes, right? Like maybe it was first a longing, but then it's like a longing that is continually not met, eventually turns into a criticism. Because I'd recently been having conversations around certain areas that I had been feeling very critical of some people. And I got thinking about how I feel like it wasn't always the case. Like I wasn't always feeling critical of this person or this situation or whatever. But I think I ended up getting there because there were so many disappointed longings and moments along the way. And I just thought it would be fun to unpack this idea of we push out these big things like criticism or anger, right? But behind it is really just a desire for healing and closeness and being seen. But usually those things pushes that farther away, the criticism and the anger. It does the opposite of what you're really wanting, right?
Totally. I remember this thought because I'm quick to criticize, I guess, especially with romantic partners. And I remember realizing that I think it was from reading Esther Perel's Mating in Captivity, honestly. But I remember distinctly a moment in time where I was like, wait a second. When I criticize, it's because I usually like want something to be seen, to be understood, to be acknowledged or appreciated. And when I'm criticizing, I'm actually pushing away the thing that I want further.
Right.
And so it was a big realization for me because I think that criticizing is just, it's kind of like modeled for us constantly. It's like how moms interact with their children. Don't do that. You should be doing more of this, blah, blah, blah. And it's also modeled for us in our romantic relationships. Like, you never do this. You never do that. Like in movies and TV shows and just constantly. The thing is if you take a step back and you're like, what is it that I like really want out of this situation? And actually I remember because when I was having this whole thing, I was like, is that being manipulative if I stop and try and think about how to actually get the end result? I had like that whole thought process. Yeah. I was like, am I thinking about this in a more manipulative way? Because I'm like, wow, I'm not getting what I want. And I came to the conclusion that ultimately, no, I'm just being smarter about like,
I like that,
like how to engage with the people in my life to like have better relationships. But yeah, this was like a big one for me, was realizing that it's not ultimately bringing me closer to usually the thing that I really want, which is always to be understood usually, or seen, or feel loved, or it's like all the same. It all like when you keep going like deeper and deeper and deeper, it's all like the same always stuff. The same thing,
Yeah. I'm so curious. So you became consciously aware of this thing and you were like, this obviously isn't working, and you shifted. Do you have like a process or what you try to do when you're feeling the honestly, criticism coming up?
It happens all the time. Even like last night, I had a moment. This is like a little personal. I had a moment where I was getting frustrated because I wanted to have sex at a different time of the day. I'm just going to like say it because we tend to like get into patterns, Definitely. Where we're like doing things. And so we were getting into this pattern of kind of having sex at the same time every day. And my immediate thing was like frustrated and critical. And then like the thought I had immediately afterwards, I was like, I have just as much say in this. But here I am like about to criticize Ben for it.
Like, this is your fault, Ben.
Yeah. Like, what? And also it had just started happening. You know what I mean? So, okay. but I just, it was literally last night. So this is why it's like top of mind. I had a moment where I was getting like frustrated and I was going to be critical. And I immediately had this whole thought process where I was like, okay, what do I want? Novelty. And I have just as much say in creating novelty in this area. And I'm really glad that we have sex regularly. So like that is wonderful. So the only thing I want is to like switch up when it happens. And my gut reaction, my go-to, the like conditioning, I think, was to be like, ugh, I don't want to do this right now. I want to do it some other time that's spicier. And instead I just like when we like, we had sex. And then after I was like, hey, I'm like craving like more novelty, blah, blah, blah. And I like brought it up in like a calm way to like get more of what I want and not like criticize. Right. Because that's the other thing is like being critical of like something like that sexually is a kind of a surefire way, in my experience, to create nervousness or
it's like
discomfort.
A slippery slope.
Yeah. Or it's just not sexy, period.
Yeah.
And so I just said the thing. I mean, of course, he was like, yeah, me too. Like, let's do that.
That's amazing.
And it's one of those situations that I feel like 5, 7, 8 years ago would have been so much more dramatic and less kind, because I would be like, we always do it this way. Life is so awful. No, I wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know if it would be that bad. But yeah, that was a little a little personal, but it's true. And I think everybody can probably relate to it. Yeah, because it's like at the end of the day, I think it's easy to jump into like a criticism when one, I have come to learn that I always play a role. And so if I'm going to like criticize, I try to like see my role first, because usually once you realize that you do play a part in most situations, it's harder to be critical.
Right. Because you're taking responsibility for
it's not like up to anyway. So it was like a really simple fix when you just think about it that way. But definitely, I would say that my go-to default unconscious reaction to things like that is to just be frustrated. It's weird because when you really think about it, I don't think I'm like a victim, but it is kind of like a victim mentality. Like I have no say in this.
This is happening to me.
This is happening to me. Also assigning so much more meaning to it. Oh, it's like he doesn't desire me or something like that, because we're tending to like do it at the same time every day when it's like, it's just like not that usually. Like it's just so wild how you can like add stories to things. That's the other thing I think that's a big one, is asking yourself the stories that you're creating.
Yeah.
Because usually they're not true.
Right. To support your criticism. Yeah.
To support your criticism. Like he's another one that's really common, I think, is I will tend to, when I feel like, I don't know, somebody's like not picking up after themselves or something like that, I tend to go to the thought process that, oh, they don't appreciate me and they don't see that I'm trying to keep the house clean and they're not thoughtful and they're not considering me. And it's like, that's so much meaning to assign to like somebody not like putting their cup in the dishwasher.
Right.
What a dramatic place to go. But I definitely have gone there and go there sometimes. Right.
And I wonder how much of that fuel that creates all those stories to reinforce your criticisms are, it seems like it's just your fears. Like your worst fear would be that your partner's not attracted to you or doesn't give a shit about you and doesn't appreciate you. And then those are just inserted into whatever situation could potentially rub up against that. Like, I think that's so true. I know I don't feel like I was ever taught to, like, this process you've described of recognizing this criticism being welling up, trying to understand your role in why things are happening the way they're happening, understanding your need there, and then being able to express your need in a really like, that's like a lot of really self-aware steps to take, which seems like it's more in alignment with what is real and what you are actually wanting to create.
Well, thinking in terms of stories has been a big game changer for me. Like, what are the stories I'm telling myself, saying those out loud, especially with safe friends and partners, and like giving them an opportunity to like
confirm or deny
the story.
Yeah,
confirm or deny the story that you're telling yourself about the thing. Because that's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it is so big. I guess I just feel like, I don't know, I always think in terms of how I parent my children, right? And what I was taught and what I'm teaching them. But it's almost this idea of, it's kind of like a vulnerability. Criticism is like a protective shell. It's like this spiky thing. And what's underneath it is this gooey, like, I just want to have fun, or I just want to like be seen. So it's like you have to not go on the offense, right? And like stay in that soft place, that vulnerable place that you're just saying, I have a want, I have a desire, and I want you to see it, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's actually a good thing that you brought up, because that's another part of this whole thing is what I realize is when you criticize someone, you generally put their defenses up.
Oh, absolutely.
And
right.
so they're so much less receptive to whatever you're saying. Whereas when you can actually get to the bottom of whatever is behind your criticism and then like show up vulnerably from a softer place.
Right.
I mean, if they care about you, which I'm assuming in most of these scenarios that we're talking about, they do.
Right.
They're going to be so much more receptive to what is actually like underneath.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. This actually also reminds me, because a big one that I have with this is like stuff around the house. And Ben told me this delightful story the other day, which has been just so lovely. And it was a story that he heard a rabbi tell when he was marrying people. And he was like, here's the thing. In relationships, you always feel like you're doing more. And so you just have to accept that you're doing 60% and the other person feels like they're doing 60%. So you just say like, I'm always doing 60% and they're always doing 60%. And that's how we get shit done. And I feel like he told it a little bit better, but it was such a like nice image, because I think we do all have the tendency to think that we're doing more
than
the
more
people
into the relationship.
Yeah, putting more into the relationship, showing up in the household more. And if you just kind of assume that, yeah, we're all doing our 60%. And now it's become a like really funny, hilarious joke, because Ben will be like putting something in a dishwasher and I'll be like, that's so cute. Look at you doing your 40%.
Nice.
And he's like, thanks. And so we like tease each other about it. I'll be like doing something. I'm like, I'm just over here doing my 60%. And he's like, look at you. And so it's been like a nice mindset shift to just not have it be equal. Things don't need to be equal. It's like we're all doing 60%. And if you think of it that way, I don't know, it just really helped me think of it in that way, where it's not, because I guess I do have a tendency of wanting things to feel equal. And like we're all putting in the same amount, or I get like frustrated and feel like I'm doing too much. So I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, and it's also just making the point that your understanding of reality is your understanding of reality. But it's not like the collective reality or the reality of your partner, you know, and just to like leave room for they're having a different experience than you are, and you can remain curious about that.
Totally. And I do think it's a tendency that we all feel like we're doing a little bit more, you know? I don't know.
I mean, I feel like I identify with that. I'm like,
who doesn't?
For sure. I'm
who's
like, yes,
like,
I do all the things.
I'm doing a solid 30.
I know.
Who are those people?
Where are they?
Sitting on a couch.
Yeah. I'm curious then about, because I feel like I've experienced criticisms that have existed for such a long time that they're habitual. They've just been around for forever. And I've been trying to go back and try to be like, where's the origin of this? And this is funny. Like, this is the one that comes to mind, is I have so much criticism and bitterness towards football.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
I think a lot of women probably can. And I feel so critical. Like, if football's on, I'm like, ugh. Like, I'm just instantaneously annoyed. And this was like just happening because football is happening right now. People are getting closer to the Super Bowl. And apparently Buffalo is doing really well, I've heard, which is kind of nice. Yeah. Anyways. But I was just like thinking about this yesterday, and I was just like, wow, I am so critical about football and about the people who love the football and want to do the football and want to do the fantasy football on top of the regular football. And I'm just like, that is like a huge waste of my energy to be so like annoyed with that. Yeah. But I think I was recognizing that it's just like a really old criticism. And I think where it comes from is just forever ago being young and married and feeling like ignored because of the football.
I feel like because of the football, first of all, we're only calling it the football.
It's the football.
I feel like so many people can relate to that. It's like kind of cliche, really. It's like such a cliche. The man watching the football and ignoring his wife while she's like trying. I mean, there's like so many scenarios about this, you know, where
it's like
maybe
a whole
she comes
archetype.
out in lingerie and like still can't get his attention.
Yeah.
There was like that one's super viral, but it was with like soccer. And she was like in lingerie. And so he like went to go tie her up and it was like all kinky looking and hot. Okay. And then he just tied her up so he could like watch the game.
Yeah.
And then like all the guys were like, woohoo!
See, like that, my like blood is kind of boiling just like hearing that. I'm just like, fuck these guys.
That's so funny. I don't have that one.
You don't have that one?
Well, you know why though? I felt that one. And then I kind of didn't want to like play into that stereotype.
You didn't want, yeah.
That's really, truly why I don't have it. Because I was like, I don't want to be the woman who hates football. And so I just like kind of refused. But I feel it. It's there. It's actually like there. And it's like I'm ignoring it for sure.
You just
like
consciously
it's not there. I'm consciously
it.
like, yes, I'm consciously like, I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah. In the beginning, I tried to be supportive and excited and the cool wife that didn't want to do the thing. But I think it just was like, it just kept happening. And there were needs there. You know, I had needs and I had desires, even if it was just for like the TV to be like off. Like, can the TV be off? I guess the point I'm trying to make is it just was such a years and years and years and years and years of this that it was almost like we had created this caricature, this stereotype, you know what I mean? That this was the narrative and this was the story. And then we both just like participated in it, you know?
That's so wild. So how does that relate to like the criticism? Are you just going to ignore it? Or
well,
where did that land? Because the unmet needs there, I'm guessing, are like, I don't know, wanting to spend quality time or like maybe even a desire to see somebody like really enjoying something like that. Because it's like hours of their day. I mean, that's the thing that always blows my mind is I'm like, wow, you're spending an entire Sunday doing this thing.
Right. And I think back in the day when my partner and he just had Saturday and Sunday off and then Sunday was spent doing football and it was just like,
it's like a whole day. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like the zombie thing, the like, I can't get through to you because there's the connection is happening to the football. And then... And I don't know, this is like a whole tangent, but I think it was just last night, I really was recognizing, I was like, wow, I have a lot of almost bitterness about it. And I don't want to have bitterness about it. And I don't want to do that like, men thing. Like, I don't want to do that, you know? And what I did last night is I got like really curious and I was asking questions. I'm like, why does the football, like, what does it do? Like, why does it
love you? Why does the football? What does it do?
Like, help me understand because I was just like, I don't know if I have the same thing.
Listen, so if you can get somebody, so my little brother and Ben both love the football. And the thing that I love about how they love the football, I actually don't have any like way to compare this to other people, but they know so much about the football. This is hilarious that they know backstories. And that to me is what makes it interesting. So like Ben has like kind of made me love Tom Brady and I think his last name is Gronkowski, but I also joke that I don't know his last
like
name.
A football name.
So I also I call him Gronksky. I think, and I'm like not sure which one is like
is real
anymore because I just call him Gronksky and Gronk. I'm like Gronk. So Tom Brady like moved to again. I'm gonna fuck all this up. I don't even know if I'm saying
Let's do it
right.
Let's just confidently blast forward.
Okay. Yes. So I'm not gonna even keep qualifying the fact that I have no fucking clue what I'm really talking about.
Yeah,
but he moved to the Buccaneers. Like,
let's do it. That sounds great to me.
Moved to the Buccaneers. He got his buddy Gronk to come out of retirement to play with him so they could have a blast. Because Tom Brady's like old, but still crushing it. And like Gronk was like, oh, fuck yeah, I'll come like with you to like play just for funsies. Except for they're still really good and it's like kind of blowing everyone's mind. And then in the last game of the season, this was like a few days ago, last game of the season, Gronk's needed one more pass to get a $500,000 bonus. Keep in mind, he like came out of retirement to play with Tom Brady. Wow. Like he was like done. And so it's like they're already winning this game so much so that they're going to pull Tom Brady out and put in another quarterback.
Okay.
Because they're winning by so much. And there's this clip of Tom Brady. The coach is like, you need to come sit down. And Tom Brady's like, I'm not coming out. Because he wanted to get Gronkowski one more pass so he would get his $500,000 bonus.
Okay.
So he's like, I'm not coming out. And he like goes back onto the field and like just literally like just throws a pass to Gronkowski just to get this bonus. And then he like all stomps off the field. And so like
hilarious.
Shit like that, when like you're aware of it and you have somebody to like point that stuff out to you,
you can see
it makes it so like enjoyable. Yeah. Because I've like really come to like it because I need the like personal details. You know what I mean? I need like I think that's part of it too. At least for, I don't know, for me, I don't know if it's like a female-ish thing to like want to know the people. Like, I'm like, I want to know the story.
How do I make the football be like Downton Abbey?
Exactly. Yeah. And then when you know and you're like, oh, look at these.
Rooting for people.
These guys are like buds. And now I like love their bromance. I'm like, look at these guys.
Aw. Yeah. So, I mean, yes, like, I think that this is the whole thing is like, and this is all very new, but just last night I was like recognizing I have this long standing criticism based on just feeling ignored a lot. And so I was like angry about that. And then I really just have this very old judgment and criticism that's just there because it's been there for a long time. And what am I missing out on for lack of curiosity here? And so I was just like, I got just like really curious and I was asking questions about the football and like, what does it do? Why does it, well, what I was like, why? Why, when your football team wins in Philadelphia, do you destroy your city? Like, why do men?
That I don't get.
And I was like, is this like, so that like, I was like asking those questions. I was like, it's got to be like a war, testosterone, like adrenaline, fucking winning thing. But I think the thing that I came to learn was that it's a lot more personable. Like I was chatting with Luke about it and he was like, I kind of put myself in the game. Like if I was actually playing the game.
Yes.
And I was like,
so
what?
fun. Yeah.
Like, so I don't do that with sports, but I do that with like,
books.
If I was watching books.
Downton Abbey.
Well, yes, of course, film and movies and books, but more like if I was to watch like a dance performance, I would do that.
Yeah.
I would be like, oh, that must feel so amazing to have that strength to do that, whatever the thing is. And I made that connection for the first time because I think part of the judgment and part of the ignorance on my part was that I have no connection to this. I can't understand this. This is so absurd to me or whatever, like
you just got to get the stories.
And I needed to like have more curiosity to be like, no, I actually do experience my own version of this in other ways. And I don't know, it gave me more empathy, but it was interesting to feel like I was uncovering this long-standing criticism. And I wonder, do we inherit criticisms? Like, I wonder, like, what are the ways that I observed my mom criticizing my dad or criticizing me? And have I like inherited those and I'm like passing them on? They're kind of everywhere.
For sure. Because there are some that I've noticed that I do or did really where I'm like, oh, that's literally just like what used to come out of my mom's mouth. Like, I haven't even decided if I want to like keep that one.
Right. And I'm just repeating.
Like, yeah. Another thing that I love that I've kind of realized is one point, this is one, turning off lights in rooms just because, I don't know, my dad taught me to do that. And so then when somebody's like leaving rooms with lights on, I'm just like, oh my God, the audacity. Like,
sure. Yeah.
You know, I'm like, how?
And that's an inherited.
Are you like, criticism. Were you raised in a barn? Like literally.
Think I'm made of money?
Such like cliches, right?
Yeah.
And Ben looked at me one day with specifically the light on thing. He was like, think about how much energy you would save by just like not doing that. Not like power to the house.
Your energy.
My energy. Yeah. Because really it's like, I mean, are we getting anywhere? Is this like, are we moving forward? Does this feel good for you? And I just was like, fuck you. But you're right. And then I kind of made a decision to just not. anymore with the lights on
leave the
thing.
lights.
I was like,
yeah.
because he was like, you could literally turn that light off, or you could just like bring it up to me every single time.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to like not bring it up, and it's actually been like a lot more pleasant. Because when you criticize someone, there's a whole emotional reaction in your body, right?
You're like
you're not
offended.
Yeah, you're like, there's like drama. There's like internal drama. That's like what is behind criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. In some situations, I've discovered it's like kind of as simple as just like choosing not to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's been honestly like a relief. It's almost like picking your battles. Like I'm like, that is not necessary, right?
Right.
Because it's not like he's leaving all the lights on. You know what I mean? It's like the bathroom light was like so unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I really like identify with that because I know I have my things that are more like pet peeves, or just like one of mine is like people taking their socks off and having them like on the couch.
Ew.
It like,
who does that?
Okay, just wait till you have kids. Just wait. Just wait. Just wait till you have kids.
That is disgusting.
That one bothers me, honestly, but my girls like know that, and they'll just like, they're on the
Stuff
floor.
them under the couch,
but I'm like,
in between
as
the
long as
cushions.
they're on the floor. Yeah, for real. I'm just like, bleh. So this is a thought I'm having because there's this whole idea of like bids, right? That you make bids in relationship constantly. Have we talked about this before on the podcast? I don't know, but this is like a good one. I remember when I learned about making bids.
Yes.
It was really helpful in languaging because then I would be like, I'm making a bid here. Like you were able to like say the thing. So it's this whole idea of in relationship, you might sit next to your partner. Let's use the football thing. Your partner's watching football and you go sit next to your partner and you're like, put your hand on their leg or whatever. And you're making a bid for
connection,
acknowledgement, connection, like look at me, say hi to me, whatever. You're making a bid. And your partner, whoever is on the receiving end of your bid, they respond in one of four ways. They're kind of categorized in positive, negative, active, passive, right? So
this is so important. This is
so important. So let's do passive negative, which is kind of the worst, would be get off of me, stop, get away. Like I'm focusing on the game. You need to leave me alone, right?
I would be active negative.
Active negative. Yes, my bad.
No,
active negative, right? Passive negative would be like, just ignoring, more or less, ignoring.
Yeah. Ignoring. Yeah.
Right. And then passive positive would be, which honestly, passive positive is like super infuriating to me. Actually, just passivity in general is, I think, but
I know, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, even like
Yeah.
active negative would be like less
because it's
upsetting
energy.
for me.
Yeah, it's you're engaging with energy. So passive positive would be like, oh, hey, hi, I love you. But it's passive. A little bit of acknowledgement, but passive. And then active positive, which is the ideal one, is shut the game off maybe. Hi, you're home from work. I love you. Tell me about your day. Or can I give you a hug or a kiss? And it's recognizing your partner's bid and understanding what that bid means and meeting the need that's there. And honestly, like we make bids all the time, constantly with people that we're in relationship with. And I think having the languaging around how are you going to respond to your bid? I mean, let me tell you, kids, they're just a constant onslaught of bids, like always happening. You know what I mean? And to like be intentional about, I am going to respond in active positive. Like that is how I'm going to respond to my kid. Even if I'm busy or tired, or I think it's like silly or whatever. And the active positive bid response is what perpetuates like a healthy, loving, kind relationship. And relationships where you have more bids that are going in the other three are the relationships that struggle a lot and that have a really hard time. And
yeah. That's what I was going to say is I know that there have been studies on this, and it's like considered one of the like best predictors of how if a relationship will survive or thrive.
Right.
Is how many bids are responded to active, positive.
Yeah.
And there's a really great visual in the book, I think is called Attached. Is that what it's called?
Uh-huh. It's got the magnet on it.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
a really great visual in the beginning of that book that kind of stuck with me. I might be getting details off, but he was telling a story about a couple competing in like Survivor or something like that. It was like a partner reality TV show partner competition, very like physically and mentally like challenging.
Yeah, yeah.
And he tells a story about how one of the girls in the partnership was really scared at the beginning of something that they were going to have to do that was like scary. It was like definitely scary. And she was like trying to like hold his hand and like touch him and like get closer to him. And she was just scared and like saying things. The more she did it, the more he pushed her away. And it made her more anxious and more nervous. One of the points that the author made was like, if he had just taken 2 seconds to like acknowledge her and give her like a positive, active response to what her bid for connection and reassurance. Yes. That it probably would have done wonders. And they might have like done much better in that like particular, I think they like lost in that activity. And then also he kind of had a whole commentary about how she criticized herself for her reaction in that moment. She basically was like, I was being needy. And I was being, you know, like she called herself like needy, which is a common label that we put on like women, period.
Right.
Is them being needy. And so it was a really nice image for me and a reminder that when somebody makes a bid for connection, the best thing you can do, and obviously you're not going to do it perfectly all the time, is take literally seconds. Like it's probably like less than a minute that you need to like give to acknowledge and reassure and connect. And I really believe, I like say this all the time to Ben, I'm like, it's the little moments that create how we feel in this relationship. It's the little times where you're like, because to me, when somebody is clearly like in the middle of something or busy or whatever, but they stop and take the time to like do that thing, that speaks volumes to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's easy. It's easy to respond to bids when you're in a good place and you're not stressed out at work. But it takes so much care and consideration to respond active, positive to bids when you're like not in your best place. And people see that. You know what I mean? People notice that you're taking the time to like give it that little extra bit of effort. And I just think it speaks like volumes.
What it says is it's like, you are so important to me.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, like it really just communicates that you are so important to me that I can pause what I'm doing, the other important thing I'm doing for 30 seconds to look at you. I don't know how naturally that comes to most people. And I think it is like a conscious practice to be like,
absolutely. I say to myself in those moments, this is important in my mind.
Yeah.
I've said that also to Ben, and now apparently he does too. Where like, for example, if I'm stressed with work and I'm doing something and he comes over and like tries to hug me, my gut reaction is like, I don't have time for this. But I say in my mind, I'm like, this is important. And it like makes me like pause and give whatever needs attention. And I do that. I do that with everyone. I do it with my siblings. I do it with my parents. I do it with you. I like literally say in my mind, like, this is important to try and get me to like be more present.
Right. And meet that bid. Yeah, it's true. I like the point that you made about these small little 30 seconds here, 30 seconds there make a huge difference in the overall scheme of things. Like, I think it's true because it's in those little day-to-day moments. I mean, that's what your relationship is.
That's what your relationship is.
It's a compilation of little moments, you know?
Right. It's not like the big grand gestures. Like those are nice, but they actually don't last that long. It's the little in-between bits. And I think that, I don't know. It's such a practice though. Very few people, at least in my life, I feel like it's just like, it's so easy to get wrapped up in whatever it is you're doing and think that that's not that important or significant or it won't leave like a lasting effect. That person will be fine. But I have just found that it's like the most important.
Yeah. And I do think that over time, when these bids are going unmet or not met with active positive and met with other things, especially like the negative aspects, I think over time that for me, develops into these like long-standing criticisms about the situation, or this always happens this way. And then I'm like operating with these criticisms that I'm just like, it feels habitual. But it just is like over time, this thing has created. And I'm trying to be really consciously aware of these criticisms that I have and trying to dismantle them so that I can meet each moment with like a new curiosity, with that beginner's mind. Like I'm going to learn from this situation instead of just repeating all the same bullshit, or, that has happened.
I was going to ask you, so it's interesting because as we're talking about different criticisms, there's like a few different techniques and getting curious about them that kind of come to mind. And I'd love to like talk about that a little bit and like even like troubleshoot, like, because when you have a repetitive criticism, which is, I think, common, I think the first step is really trying to figure out what's the actual like unmet need.
Right.
Because if it's happening over and over again, there's usually an unmet need. So like asking that about yourself. I also think an important part is like, what role am I playing here?
Yeah.
So I think the two questions to ask when you're feeling a repetitive criticism are, what is the unmet need and what is my part? Because I also think it's important to look at what's my part, because usually there's something that you can do to help.
Right.
Which is, I don't know, empowering for me.
Yeah. Because like I wonder, to go back to like the football analogy, like I wonder what would have happened if I were to have been consciously aware of my need, which is I need to feel like I am getting some attention or feeling seen on Sundays when the football's happening all day. And so can we maybe make sure that on Saturday night we go on a date, or early Sunday morning we have coffee together and we sit with each other and I feel really seen by you, and be conscious of like, well, how can I make sure that I'm giving an opportunity for my need to be met? Instead of just putting it all on the other person and it's all their responsibility, instead of being like exactly what you said, I am playing a role in this too. And I can actively ask for my needs to be met and not expect my partner to be able to read my mind, And then it's like when you're on the receiving end of criticism, this is the other thing, is like being on the receiving end of being criticized is so awful and hard. And it's so hard to be able to look at this person who's criticizing you and see past that and ask, because that's the flip side of the coin. We've been talking a lot about us being criticized, or us criticizing. But what about when we're receiving criticism? Because like I can get really irritated and I'll be like, stop criticizing me, like I can get like frustrated like that, when this thought of behind criticism is a longing and like a wish that is wanting to be fulfilled, and to be able to recognize criticisms coming at you and to be able to be curious about what is the longing that this other person has? What is the need that's there? Because honestly, I don't know, not a lot of people are going to be consciously going through this in this way that we're talking about. And so you might have to do the work from the other end of recognizing this criticism is a bid. It is a bid that has gotten stagnant and bitter and upset. And what is the need that's behind all of that cranky, spiky frustration,
Totally. No, that's super important too. We have mostly talked about us being critical, but thinking about being criticized is also super important. I tend to always take it to a self-deprecating place. I'm like, let's talk about when I was like real shitty. And I mean, and like, it's easier for me to talk and think about me being critical, I think.
Oh, then you being criticized.
Yeah, than it is for me to think about. Because I tend to think like when I'm being criticized that I'm like deserving of it, like for sure.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah,
whoa.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that checks out.
Interesting.
It's funny. I'm like quite comfortable being criticized. I'm always just saying to Ben, I'm like, look, I'm pretty comfortable being like with criticism. I just need like the balance. Like you have to say nice things too. Or else then I'm like, wait a second, do you even like me? Like, why are we here? Because that's where I tend to go with that when I'm just being criticized all the time. I'm like, why are we here? Do you like me even?
Are we breaking up? Like, there's no reason for
we joke. We go
to continue.
Divorce? Especially if it's like, I'll be like, why don't you ever wipe out your sink? It's disgusting. And he's just like, divorce?
That's fucking hilarious.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's like the best way to make me laugh about like super insignificant shit.
Right. Yeah. I don't know, because I feel like I'm receptive to criticisms when I feel like they're actual, intelligent, and potentially constructive criticisms, you know, that I'm just like, and then I'll be like, yeah, you're totally right. I have been unavailable, or I've been grumpy, or I've been whatever. Like, yes, I can see that. You're right. It's the criticisms that I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I feel like I've gotten like crazy criticisms from people in the past that have been like rooted in absurdity. And it's just been like,
well, that's true, because it's like when a criticism is in alignment with your beliefs and stories about yourself, I'm sure
it's
you're
easier
like,
to,
you're like, yeah, I know, I'm a piece of shit. Thank you. And then when it's like something where they're like, I mean, it's like an injustice thing. I have such a problem with that. Like when somebody says something that I'm like, feels like untrue or unjust, I'm like up in arms. I'm like, that is just not true. And that's the worst.
It's this idea that, because I feel like I have been criticized by people in my past and it had nothing to do with me. Like it actually had nothing to do with me or what I was doing. They were experiencing an entirely separate reality in which they were struggling a lot. And they had all this pent up frustration and anger, and they were taking it out on me by criticizing me. And that is like super frustrating for me when people do that.
That's what's frustrating about strangers online going to town on you, is because I'm like, what? You know?
Yeah.
Especially when it's like definitely like not true. It's so hard because I'm like, you wish it didn't bother you because it's not true. So you're like, this shouldn't bother me. It's not true. But it's like the injustice of it is what bothers you. Because you're like, no, this is not true. And then like, I don't know, it's a practice to not let that bother you. To just feel so good in who you are and confident that you don't need to like prove yourself to everyone, or you don't need to be seen accurately by everyone. That has been a practice for me.
Like releasing that. Yeah.
Just like, I am not going to be understood by everyone, and that is okay. I mean, that's literally the only way you can create content and put it online and not go insane.
Right.
You have to practice that. It's like,
is
not
that like
a
new course? Like for content creators, how to not get your feelings hurt?
Honestly, it could be, because I see content creators get like so worked up. They'll like post rants about somebody who like emailed them or left a comment. Like it's such a thing.
It is. I've been seeing it more and more, I think, too.
Well, it's funny. I actually go back and forth on this. I'm like, there's a part of me that thinks that it's good to call it out because it is a real problem. It is a real problem. And I feel for people who have like, I don't know, millions of followers and stuff. I know what their inbox looks like. It is probably horrific, actually. Because I just assume it's like mine, but amplified by like 10x, 100x, right? And there's so much shit that people like fling at you that you're just like, do you not have better ways to spend your time? Like, what is going on? And so I do think sometimes I have days where I'm like, I think that that's an important thing to call out. But then I have days, more often than not, I land in the area where I'm like, this is such a waste of your energy to spend like acknowledging even these people. So I actually remind myself that like not responding is a flex. I'm just like,
okay.
And so when people leave comments or something, I'm just like, I don't have to respond to that. It's fine.
Right.
Or I just try to respond with kindness, because I'm like, this person obviously like the best use of their time is to like scream at someone on the internet. And so clearly something in their life is like not going well. Because like anyone I know who's like healthy, doing pretty good, working on themselves, is not screaming at people online.
Exactly.
The people I know who scream online are the one. And I mean, the thing is I have people like in my world, family and such, who are screaming online. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
That is,
I mean,
a reflection of you, like, my dear, not anything else.
Like hearing you say, like, you have to do so many mental and emotional gymnastics to help you not respond in the way you would. Because like if somebody walked up to you and screamed at you, you would have like, okay, like boundaries, and you would protect yourself, and you would Right. But because like now with the internet, people have access to you all the time and they don't have the consequences of in person criticizing you. So there's like nothing really for these people to lose, like for them to like vent. It's like created this whole phenomenon, but it doesn't remove the fact that it takes emotional work. Like you've had to do a lot of work to get where you are today, to be able to like have your set structure of like how you deal with these things. But when you think about it, it's kind of like goes against the grain of like what you would naturally do in any given interaction. So it's just like, it's wild thinking about how much work these people who have a platform online and people have access to them. Even though like I do think that the strategy of like, this isn't about me, I don't take this personally, all those things is necessary. But I wonder though, there's this like energy coming at you. Like regardless of if it's real, regardless of if it has anything to do with you, there is like an onslaught of energy being directed to you, like aggressively.
Yeah.
And I just like, I think that affects people. I think it affects people and it like,
although I feel like I can say very, very confidently that it doesn't affect me. I can't say at all, but it doesn't affect me like it once did. Like it really used to like rock me.
Yeah.
And it was a big reason. I mean, it's a big reason people stay small, right? Like they don't go after the thing if they want to put themselves out there online, which I think is really unfortunate because you can do the work and get stronger. I literally just had somebody reach out to me and they were like, I want to grow my dog training business, but I'm so scared of just being out there online and what I open myself up to. And I was like, look, that is a practice and you will get stronger if you just keep going. I was like, just like overnight, you're not going to have 1 million people on your YouTube channel or a ton of people. It's going to happen gradually. And you're going to put things in place, or at least I hope you do. I'm sure some people don't. And they probably just are like, I mean, it's probably really, I actually like really feel for some people. I don't know. I've just seen some influencers who like will put rants with like, y'all are like killing me. Like chill, like stop commenting on like, anyway, but it doesn't happen overnight and it's something you can grow into. And I actually like, I've really come to think that it's worth it because what it's forced me to do is really look at myself, my business, my course, because that's a lot of where some of the criticism comes from is like the Write Your Way to Freedom course. And I've had to get to a place of confidence. Yeah. You know what I mean? I can respond and get small, or I can respond and make my course the fucking best course it can be and know without a shadow of a doubt that it is worth every fucking penny and more. You know what I mean? And so you have like two choices. You can crumble and get small, or you can like implement things in your life and in your business and whatever to where you get to a place where you feel so solid that you're like, I know what you're saying is not true, which is ultimately feels great. Like you get your self-worth is elevated. Your confidence is higher than it's ever been. I don't know. That's how I've kind of dealt with online criticism. Because sometimes there's been criticism where it stung because you know the difference between criticism where it stings because it's not true and your injustice like warrior comes out. And then there's the criticism where you're like, fuck, that's true.
Lands. Yeah.
And it lands because it hurts because it's true. And when that happens, I mean, that's just an opportunity to like improve whatever is broken or isn't doing as best as it could. Yeah.
Yeah. Like having that beginner's mind. Like, okay, well.
And I think that's a good place.
Learn from this?
Does this land in a place where it stings because it has some truth? And if so, what can I do to like improve that area of my life or work or whatever so that it doesn't sting as much? I don't know. Yeah. Or what can be done? I don't know. Maybe there isn't anything that can be changed, which is like hard.
Right.
If it's like a criticism of like the way you look, like I don't.
Right.
Like, that's
like, damn. Okay. Guess I'm not for you then. You know?
Yeah.
I could go hide. Yeah. No, I feel like you have so much like wisdom to give in this area because you've applied all of the tools that you've learned just like in your relationships and in your own like internal growth. And then you've had to like figure out how to apply those to this online presence and the onslaught that you've been receiving. And I feel like you just have so much insight and wisdom into that process because you've created an entire belief system about like how you conduct yourself and how you show up and what you receive, what you reject, you know, and like how you move through that. Like, I think it's needed because I feel like, I do feel like I see people that are just like struggling. Yeah. They're just like struggling and fighting these battles. And I just feel like, oh, my heart goes out to them. Like it feels like it's so exhausting, you know?
Yeah. It's so interesting how we're wired to care so deeply what others think about us. Like we are like hardwired for that. And like it is like a survival mechanism. So we're like part of communities and and not like kicked out of the tribe and things like that. But it's like, it's kind of incredible, really. Like I actually have been thinking about this a lot. Just the amount of energy that we all spend worrying about that stuff and how it totally controls like what we end up doing. I mean, it's like why people choose careers that they choose, why people don't start an online business. I mean, the amount of people who reach out to me that are like, I don't want to have an online presence. I'm so scared of being the thing. I'm like, dude, I didn't want one either. I never wanted an online presence ever. I never wanted to be that copywriting girl. It really came from a place of wanting to help people and then it being worth it. So that's the other thing is I think that if I were just having like an online presence, I don't know, based in like my body, you know, how some people like their whole online presence and that is like their physical, like, I think that would kind of fuck with me. Like, I don't know that I could do that, honestly. Yeah. But like for me, my online presence is helping people. So it's like the cost benefit analysis is like so obviously worth it. I'm like, I'll take some people slinging some fucked up things for the sake of helping the amount of people I'm helping. Like it feels worth it. But yeah, I don't know how people, models and stuff, I feel for them. I really do. Seems way too hard for me.
Yes. Oh, it's got to be like a whole
like, have you ever seen the Britney Spears and Tiger Woods documentary? This is like next level, but like both of those.
I mean, I saw the Britney Spears one. I didn't actually see
those
the
both
Tiger Woods
stand
one.
out to me for the same reason because they're incredibly famous and what they put themselves through fame wise. I mean, like when Britney Spears shaved her head, I was like, logical choice. Yes. Yeah. Makes so much sense to me because she was being constantly just like touched by strangers and like assaulted. And I just like, I mean, like when I just had so much empathy for her when she shaves her head and is like, I just don't want anyone to fucking touch me anymore. Like, stop touching me. I was like, that just seems like honestly the most reasonable thing to do in that moment. Yeah. And then Tiger Woods, there's this incredible scene where he's like having all these pictures taken by the paparazzi and the paparazzi is like, it just like insane. Like I'm like watching it, like I think I would have a panic attack. And he's standing there with like this little kid and he's smiling and the little kid's like, fuck. Like he's like, I guess you just get used to this. And Tiger Woods is like, you never get used to this. Like through his teeth. And then there's like another moment, I think it's separate, but like again with the paparazzi where you see him mouth the words, he goes, fuck me. Wow. And he's just like smiling, but like the sheer like magnitude of people just like in his face with no respect or regard for like him. Like, cause really they're just like trying to make money off his photo. And it's like, right. Competitive. Like, yeah. I would never want to be famous. Oh my God.
Yeah. It is just so, it's so interesting how we're having to evolve coping mechanisms as technology increases and stuff like that. It's like a whole other level of
so we're not used to being criticized by like
everyone,
literally
all
everyone.
The people. Yeah. Right. And like having access.
I think that we weren't made to do it actually. And I think that it's like outside of what our brains are like capable of almost. And I think that's part of what makes it really hard.
Yeah.
It's like we were not meant to like have millions of people like
deal with that energy being thrown at us all the time. Like it's this whole, what you brought up, like we had our tribe we are wired to really care what our tribe thinks about us because we need them to like us because we need to work together to survive and stuff like that. And so it's almost like this conscious, like, who do I really care about? You know what I mean? And that's my tribe, and everybody else is like, doesn't get that same weight in me. They just like don't get to they haven't earned that, you know, they haven't earned that position.
It is. It's a practice. It really like could be like a whole thing that people need. Cause I just think that if you're not doing mindset work, like I cannot even imagine if I were like an influencer and I was not doing mindset work, I think I would just be a hot mess. Like I would just, cause you'd be at the mercy of like all the criticisms of strangers. And like, how much would that fuck with your sense of self?
Yeah.
You know, like you just like really, truly, this is the best thing for like dealing with criticism in a healthy way is just having a strong sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think
because then you can know, is this
mine?
True? Is this real in some aspects, or is this something that's not real at all? But yeah, if you don't have that sense of self and you're absorbing all of that, that's too much.
It's
like, that's
too
much.
I'm so glad we're talking about this, and we could definitely talk about it more. But I just think it's a thing that people, I know I've said this, but I think it's a reason people stay small is all of this fear around this. And that bums me out because I think that the end result is a stronger sense of self-worth if you do the work to be able to move through the world where this doesn't like affect you as much. And to me, that feels worth it because it's like you're going to get to do the thing you want to do. And you're also going to not be as like impacted. So for me, it has been so worth it. I don't know. I just feel like my sense of self-worth and confidence has grown from working through this stuff. So it feels worth it to me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think that's kind of a critical
or else why the fuck would we do it?
Why? Yeah. Why are you putting yourself out there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, criticisms. I think it's like
hard, man.
Yeah, it's like learning to understand the ones you dish out, learning to understand the ones you're receiving. And I think it's worth giving some like conscious, like intentional thought to trying to understand, because I feel like if we could all get a better system of actually speaking what our needs are and then being able to see what other people's needs are instead of this battling of criticisms. And I think it would be like
curiosity. It's always curiosity.
It can always come back to that.
It really can. Compassionate curiosity. And the thing is especially with the criticisms that have been there for so long, because I know we all have them. We all have relationships where there's criticisms either from us or from them that we've been hearing for like probably decades.
Yes.
And it's like getting curious about those are extra hard because there's so much of a pattern built.
Yeah. Like sometimes it can be hard to even recognize them because they're just so ingrained into the how you've been doing things for forever, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is good.
Criticisms. This is good. Yeah. This was a good one. I think I want to like work on receiving criticisms. I don't know. I just like, I
in
think
a balanced
touching on
way. I'm going to say this because I know that sometimes you take criticisms and you get into like total repent mode. Like I have to do more work in this area.
Yes.
And confess and repent. And what I sometimes say to you is like, or it could just be you were like messy today and that's the end of it. Like, because you'll go quick to like, I got to do the work, blah, blah, blah. And it's like a great way to be. But sometimes I'm like, I don't think you need to do more work in this area, actually. I just think that like, I had a day where it was like, you know, so that's an interesting element.
Yeah, that's absolutely like a balancing I need to work on.
I need to work on like not working. It's like,
I need to work on not working on things so hard, but also kind of being aware that
finding the balance, like truly. It's about finding the balance because I'm sure some people can also relate. Like some people I think tend to get more defensive and like deflective, and some people tend to like crumble and be like, yeah, I'm like the worst. I know. Thank you.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like the people I really love and care about, I do more of that like crumbling, and the people that are dishing out criticisms where I'm just like,
you don't know me. Yeah.
Fuck that, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, no, thank you. But I think I just like overall want to be more curious of what's being said behind that criticism, and not taking offense to the criticism like that, but being like, what's the longing that's resting right behind the criticism? Because that helps me just see people with so much more tenderness, you know? Because like when you're perceiving somebody as just being angry and critical, it's like hard to like that. You know, you're just like, why would I like that? But when you're perceiving somebody as like having a longing and having a need, it triggers all the empathy. And I guess it's just like, yeah, more of that, I guess, you know? But
totally. It really always comes back to that. And again, especially with the ones that have been around for a long time in my experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this where we awkwardly sing an outro?
Okay,
Moonwalk out of the podcast.
And scene.
Scene. I love you so much.
I love you. Till next time.
Bye.